So in the sales data sheet, what I've got is I've already got a table. So I've already created the table. Originally, that was just a block of data, which was 7 columns across, over 1,000 rows down. And I just did what I showed you before. I went to insert table, inserted a table. I've removed the drop down arrows. I have removed the styles, and I've gone in and I've changed the name of the table from table 1 and called it sales data. And the reason for that is because it means that as more rows of data are added, so at the moment this is January to May, but when June and July and August sales figures come in, I can just add those to the bottom of this list, and any pivot tables we have will update. To create a pivot table, you start off in one cell in the raw data. So make sure that you are in the raw data. And you go up to Insert and select Pivot Table. Okay, so Insert Pivot Table. It asks you where the data is coming from. And it's picked up the table called Sales Data because my cursor is in there. It says, where do I want the pivot table to go? And it gives me a couple of options. I can either create a new worksheet, which will be added just to the left of the sheet I'm in, or I can put my pivot table into an existing worksheet, and that's what I'm going to do. Click in Location, and then choose where I'm going to put the pivot table. So I'll click into Row Headings, which is the name of a sheet, and click onto A1. So I'm going to put my pivot table starting in A1 on this sheet and click OK. Because my cursor is now in the pivot table area, or the area that Excel has reserved for the pivot table, I get this pivot table fields panel on the right hand side of the screen. If I click my mouse into a different cell, it disappears. Click back in here, it reappears. Now this area here, that is not necessarily going to be the area for the pivot table. I don't know why Microsoft have done that, because it can be a little bit confusing. It's like saying your pivot table will only take up that space. Really, you just want to have your cursor in there, and we don't really need this area. So to build your pivot table, you literally drag and drop. So you've got your fields listed on the right hand side, which is the headings from the source data, the headings from row 1. And you've got 4 areas: filters, columns, rows and values. I want my pivot table to have a list of flavours down column A. So I drag flavour and drop it into the rows section. So drag flavour and drop it into the rows section. Literally grab it and drag it. And what Excel does, it goes back to the source data and it lists each flavour once. If I've changed my mind, if I think, you know what, I don't want flavours, I just drag flavour out of the row section and drop it back into the fields list. So if I drag state into there, it lists each state. If I drag source of order, it lists the 3 different ways that people can place orders. Okay, I'll stick with flavour, which is what I had originally. Then I want to bring in the value, something into the values. So in my example, I want to know how many pots of ice cream were ordered for each flavour. So I'll drag pots ordered into the values section. And there is my pivot table. So at the simplest level, that's it. Just drag and drop, and it's done.